At approximately 7 PM Iranian time, the silence of the Pacific was broken as 7 USB-2 Spirit stealth bombers lifted off from Andersen Air Force Base in Guam. Each aircraft was armed with 2 GBU-57 bunker-busting bombs. Flying at speeds surpassing 1,000 kilometers per hour, they began their long, silent journey across continents toward a singular, high-stakes mission. By 2:20 a.m. Iranian time, the lead bombers had already slipped undetected into Iranian airspace, gliding like shadows toward their targets. Just 10 minutes later, at exactly 2:30 a.m., the sky above Iran's key nuclear sites lit up as the first wave of bombs struck. In a matter of moments, all 3 of Iran's major nuclear facilities were under intense bombardment. The roots of the operation trace back to June 12, 2025, when Israel stunned the world with a surprise strike on Iranian targets, a move that instantly set the entire Middle East on edge. Tensions flared, alliances hardened, and within days, the region teetered on the brink of full-scale conflict. In Washington, the response was swift and resolute. President Donald Trump, long a vocal opponent of Iran's nuclear program, saw the moment as both a challenge and an opportunity. In the tense days leading up to the strike, subtle signals of an impending operation began to surface. The U.S. quietly evacuated non-essential personnel from embassies across the region, issued heightened travel advisories, and began repositioning key military assets toward the Middle East. The first visible signs of movement came as early as June 15, 2025. The USS Carl Vinson Carrier Strike Group, already stationed in the Arabian Sea since April, was well within striking range and on high alert. Meanwhile, the USS Nimitz, originally scheduled for a goodwill port visit in Vietnam, abruptly changed course. By June 16th, it was slicing through the Singapore Strait, en route to the U.S. Central Command area, just miles from the heart of the developing crisis. On June 18th, the USS Gerald R. Ford, initially slated to deploy to the U.S. 6th Fleet for Mediterranean operations, was also being eyed for potential redirection, its proximity to Israel and the eastern Mediterranean making it a strategic wildcard should the conflict escalate further. This naval buildup was no coincidence. It was the visible edge of a much broader surge of U.S. military power, which included destroyer escorts, forward-deployed fighter squadrons, and aerial refueling tankers. Every move was calibrated to send a message. The U.S., in coordination with Israel, was preparing for a decisive blow. The pieces were falling into place. Iran may not have seen the strike coming, but in hindsight, the warning signs were there. Just days before the attack, President Donald Trump abruptly cut short his appearance at the G8 summit, citing the need to review classified military options. Though he publicly stated he was giving Iran 2 weeks for negotiation, his true intentions remained deliberately vague. Some now believe that the president's cryptic remarks were a strategic feint, designed to lull Tehran into a false sense of security while preserving the element of surprise. Behind closed doors, the wheels of war were already turning. What appeared to be diplomacy may have, in fact, been a countdown. Less than 3 days after issuing his so-called 2-week ultimatum, the U.S. began quietly putting the final pieces in motion. On June 21, 2025, just 1 day before the strike, 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers lifted off from Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, accompanied by KC-46 Pegasus aerial refueling tankers. This wasn't a routine deployment. It was a deliberate signal, subtle to the public, unmistakable to anyone watching closely, that a strike was imminent. The B-2s are the only aircraft capable of delivering the GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrator, a 30,000-pound bunker buster bomb specifically designed to destroy fortified underground targets like Iran's Fordo nuclear facility. But the buildup wasn't limited to bombers alone. Across the Pacific, other strategic assets were being repositioned. Submarines silently slipped into the Arabian Sea, while surveillance and strike platforms were forward deployed to key bases. It was a meticulously choreographed movement of force, silent, precise, and deliberate, setting the stage for what would become one of the most daring airstrikes in recent history. Under direct orders from President Donald Trump, U.S. Central Command, led by General Eric Carrillo, executed Operation Midnight Hammer, a deliberate and high-risk precision strike targeting 3 of Iran's most critical nuclear facilities. This mission, complex in scope and bold in execution, showcased the unmatched skill, discipline, and coordination of America's joint forces. The operation was designed to deliver a devastating blow to Iran's nuclear weapons infrastructure, with the goal of crippling its enrichment capabilities for years to come. Spanning multiple domains and theaters, the strike reflected the United States' global reach and its ability to project overwhelming power at any time, in any place of its choosing. So secretive was the mission that only a select circle within Washington's highest echelons were aware of the timing or scope. In the earliest minutes of Saturday morning, a large formation of B-2 stealth bombers launched from the continental United States. In a move to preserve tactical surprise, a portion of the strike package peeled westward into the Pacific in a masterful deception maneuver, known only to a handful of top planners in Washington and at U.S. Central Command headquarters in Tampa. The real strike group continued silently toward the heart of Iran. The hammer was already in motion. The main strike package, 7 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, each crewed by 2 elite airmen, slipped eastward under the radar, flying deep into the night with minimal radio chatter. For nearly 18 hours, the bombers navigated thousands of miles, conducting multiple in-flight refuelings with pinpoint precision. As they neared Iranian airspace, the mission entered its most complex phase. In one of the most finely choreographed aerial maneuvers in recent memory, the B-2s linked up with escort and support aircraft across a narrow corridor of sky, each platform arriving within seconds of its designated time slot. All of it executed in near silence. At approximately 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just minutes before the bombers breached Iranian airspace, a U.S. Navy submarine operating within the CENTCOM area of responsibility launched more than 24 Tomahawk land attack missiles. Their targets: surface infrastructure nodes around Esfahan, intended to disrupt communications, power grids, and radar networks. As Operation Midnight Hammer fully unfolded, the U.S. unleashed a series of deception tactics. 4th and 5th generation aircraft surged ahead of the B-2s at high speed and altitude, drawing the attention of Iranian air defense systems and sweeping for enemy fighters. It was a masterstroke of tactical misdirection. Behind them, the real strike force advanced undetected. This operation was not limited to the air. It was supported across multiple commands. U.S. Strategic Command ensured nuclear readiness. U.S. Transportation Command kept tankers and logistics flowing. U.S. Cyber Command waged silent war in the digital space. U.S. Space Command and the U.S. Space Force monitored from orbit. And U.S. European Command coordinated peripheral defense. Together, they form the most advanced and synchronized joint force effort in decades. As the strike package closed in on Fordo and Natanz, the U.S. package moved into action. High-speed suppression weapons were deployed, and fighter aircraft launched preemptive fire against potential Iranian surface-to-air missile sites, clearing a safe corridor for the bombers. Despite the risk, not a single shot was fired at the incoming U.S. aircraft. The skies remained eerily quiet. At precisely 6:40 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 2:10 a.m. in Iran, the lead B-2 Spirit released 2 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators, targeting the first of several hardened underground bunkers at Fordo. As President Trump confirmed in his address last night, the rest of the strike package followed in quick succession. In total, 14 bunker busters were dropped across 2 high-value nuclear targets. Between 6:40 p.m. and 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 2:10 to 2:35 a.m. Iranian time, all 3 of Iran's key nuclear infrastructure sites were hit with devastating precision. The final wave of Tomahawk cruise missiles struck Esfahan at the tail end of the operation, carefully timed to preserve the element of surprise until the very last moment. After delivering their payloads, the Operation Midnight Hammer bombers banked west, and began their long journey home. Once again, they passed through Iranian airspace without opposition. Iran's air defenses never engaged, their fighters never took off, and by all accounts, their radar systems never saw the bombers at all. At the heart of the operation was the Fordow Fuel Enrichment Plant, Iran's most heavily fortified nuclear facility, carved into a mountain near the holy city of Guam. Buried nearly 80 meters beneath solid rock, Fordow was designed to withstand all but the most powerful strikes. But on the night of the attack, the U.S. brought its heaviest hammer. 6 GBU-57 massive ordnance penetrators were dropped directly onto the facility, each capable of burrowing deep into reinforced terrain before detonation. The goal was to destroy the centrifuge halls hidden beneath the mountain. Eyewitnesses in nearby towns described tremors so intense they were mistaken for an earthquake. Hours later, satellite imagery revealed massive structural collapse at the site. Natanz has long stood at the center of global scrutiny, home to thousands of centrifuges spinning uranium and symbolizing Iran's nuclear ambitions. Though it had previously endured acts of sabotage, allegedly at the hands of Israeli operatives, the facility remained active and vital to Iran's enrichment efforts. But that status changed dramatically on the night of the U.S. strike. As part of Operation Midnight Hammer, Natanz was hit with a coordinated barrage involving Tomahawk cruise missiles and, according to intelligence sources, possible follow-on aerial bombardment. Initial assessments based on satellite imagery and intercepted communications suggest that both the facility's power grid and its centrifuge halls suffered catastrophic damage. With its infrastructure shattered, analysts now believe the site has been rendered inoperable for the foreseeable future. Isfahan, though less fortified than Fordow or Natanz, plays a critical role in Iran's nuclear infrastructure. The city hosts a uranium conversion facility and several key research laboratories, essential components in the front end of the nuclear fuel cycle. During Operation Midnight Hammer, Isfahan was struck by a wave of Tomahawk cruise missiles launched from a U.S. submarine in the region. The missiles tore through above-ground structures with devastating precision, leaving plumes of smoke and fire rising over the city's industrial outskirts. While the site lacked the deep underground protection of Iran's other nuclear assets, its loss delivered a significant blow to the country's research and development capabilities. Experts suggest that the damage to Isfahan's conversion facility will further delay any attempt by Tehran to reconstitute its nuclear program in the near term.